Hello there, and welcome to Echoes of the Imperium. I'm truly glad you've arrived. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of soul who prefers to drift into sleep with thoughts of distant stars and ancient cosmic secrets instead of counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey belongs to you. You don't need to do anything now, just rest. Let your mind grow quiet, your breath steady, and your body feel lighter, as if even the pull of gravity has begun to fade away.
The wind smelled of ash and iron, bitter and metallic, pricking at my throat like a whisper of warning from 1,000 dead worlds. I first opened my eyes not upon the gilded throne room of Terra, nor amidst the cathedraled halls of the Golden Throne, but upon a shattered cliff where the sky was fractured gold and black, a sunless brilliance bleeding across jagged stone. My first step felt unnatural, my armor heavier yet lighter than I remembered, attuned to some alien force that seemed to test the boundaries of my body, as though it too belonged to this strange, hostile world. The lands between did not welcome me. It regarded me as an invader, a deity misplaced, and I felt its gaze digging into my mind, probing for weaknesses I had long since buried beneath centuries of conquest and careful thought. Below, the valleys were swallowed in a red haze, curling like a living thing, and through it I glimpsed ruins, cathedrals, towers, and bridges, all warped, impossibly ancient, yet alive with a malevolence that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat in sync with my own. Even here, in this alien realm, the emperor of mankind could perceive its hierarchies, its natural order. But I sensed immediately that it was a world without mercy, without reason. Even the air itself seemed sentient, filled with whispers and subtle tremors that toyed with perception. My psychic senses, honed over millennia to detect warp incursions and daemon infestations, strained against the fabric of this reality. There were no daemons here, not as I knew them. These were something else entirely, older, stranger, infinitely patient in their observation. I moved forward cautiously, each step echoing against the cracked stone of the cliff. In the distance, a shattered castle loomed atop a hill, crowned with spires that bent and twisted as though they had grown from the dreams of mad gods. Gargoyles with bone-like wings perched along its edges, their eyes blinking faintly with an unnatural luminescence. It was a place of power, of testing. Even my intellect, sharpened by countless campaigns across the stars, could not immediately comprehend its architecture. There was symmetry, yes, but it was the symmetry of chaos, a pattern that made the mind ache the longer one stared at it. I found myself recalling the worlds of the Imperium, where chaos had seeped into stone and blood alike. Yet this was far more alien, far more complete in its denial of all that I had known. A sudden noise tore through the haze below, a shattering roar, somewhere between metal grinding and bone cracking, and I froze. My instincts, honed through wars with orcs, tyrannids, and the heretical sons of the Primarchs, screamed at me to prepare. Yet when I looked, I saw no movement, only a ripple in the red fog that seemed almost intentional, like the breath of the world itself. My mind quivered, not in fear of death, for death was merely another battlefield, but in apprehension at the unknown. Even gods could feel trepidation when confronted by a force beyond understanding. I tried to orient myself. The lands between stretched endlessly in every direction, a labyrinth of hills, rivers that shimmered with black oil, forests of twisted ironwood, and mountains that scraped the fractured sky. Here and there, I saw signs of life, or death masquerading as life, creeping between ruins, figures hunched and limping, some bound in iron, some fused with the architecture itself, their screams silent yet palpable through the psychic veil. It reminded me of the warp-tainted worlds I had cleansed, yet these were no mere humans, no simple heretics. They were echoes, shadows, a perversion of vitality itself. My golden eyes, lit from within by the unending fire of the Emperor's soul, could pierce their forms, yet comprehension remained elusive. As I stepped closer to the cliff's edge, I glimpsed my reflection in a pool of stagnant water. My face was unchanged, yet my eyes seemed dimmed, my soul mirrored back, as though the world itself sought to distort it. I could feel my divinity being measured, questioned, mocked. The voice of doubt, the rarest enemy I had ever faced, slipped into my consciousness. Could the Emperor fall? Could I be undone here, where the rules of the universe were rewritten? My mind recoiled from the thought. It was intolerable, yet impossible to ignore. Even as I reaffirmed my will, I recognized the truth. The lands between was not merely a battlefield, it was a mind trap, a place where the landscape itself conspired against intruders, where doubt and despair were as lethal as any sword. I moved forward, each step an act of defiance against the creeping madness. The cliff descended into a valley where the fog thickened, the red haze now swirling with black veins that pulsed like arteries. Within, I glimpsed the first of its denizens, a knight, enormous, draped in armor carved to resemble a shattered cathedral, its sword as long as a titan's cannon, its presence exuding centuries of malevolent intent. Unlike any foe I had faced in the Imperium, this one did not attack immediately. Instead, it regarded me, its empty gaze pressing into my mind. I could feel the psychic pressure, a kind of cold hunger, testing my consciousness. My thoughts, normally disciplined, flickered like flames in the wind. Memories of Terra, of Luna, of the Great Crusade surged unbidden. I realized with a chill that the lands between was capable of more than physical attacks. It assaulted the psyche itself, carving away its certainty and self. Yet I could not relent. I had faced annihilation countless times, yet never had I encountered a force that made me feel small, irrelevant, fragile. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and familiar. The paradox was unbearable, to feel the vulnerability of a mortal, yet to know I wielded the power of a god. My inner monologue, usually calm, strategic, became a litany of fear, determination, and obsessive calculation. Assess, strike, survive, understand, adapt. The lands between did not allow hesitation. Every step I took was observed, every breath scrutinized. I realized that even my mind was a battlefield, and the enemy was patient beyond reckoning. Above, the sky continued its convulsion, shifting from gold to black, the colors bleeding as though reality itself were melting. I could sense the presence of other lords here, creatures and kings whose mere existence twisted the laws of nature. One in particular drew my attention, an undead king seated atop a tower wreathed in unholy flame, his crown jagged and alive with movement. I did not know his name, but I felt the weight of his power, a gravitational pull on my mind and spirit. I sensed that all paths, all trials converged upon him. He was the first anchor in this alien hierarchy, and I knew that confrontation was inevitable. As I approached, the psychological strain intensified. I felt memories not my own, fragments of lives lived and lost in this world, echoes of warriors who had fallen and risen again, trapped in cycles I could barely comprehend. My consciousness recoiled, yet I forced it to absorb the lessons. I realized that the lands between was a crucible, testing more than physical strength. It measured endurance of mind, purity of will, and the capacity to confront eternity without breaking. Even I, the master of mankind, had to steel myself against despair. My inner monologue became a whispered prayer, not to any god, but to myself. I am the Emperor. I endure.
I will not falter. The first skirmish came not with steel or flame, but with the landscape itself. Rocks lifted like fists, rivers boiled upward, and shadows surged from the fog, twisting into forms that mocked human and machine alike. I struck with psychic force, golden light searing the phantoms, yet they reformed endlessly, a reflection of my doubt and fear. My mind struggled to separate reality from illusion, to maintain the discipline that had led humanity through 10 millennia of war. And still I pressed forward, each step an act of willpower, each breath a defiance of entropy itself. By the time I reached the foot of the tower where the undead king awaited, exhaustion of a sort unfamiliar to me began to creep into my bones. Not physical exhaustion, my body was the emperor's, perfect and inexhaustible, but a psychological fatigue, the weight of a world consciously designed to break even gods. And yet I stood, a pillar of golden light against the darkness, knowing that retreat was impossible. Here, in this alien land, I faced the first true test of divinity.
I stepped onto the apex of the tower, and the world seemed to shiver beneath me. The fractured sky above churned like boiling mercury, lightning streaking through gold and black clouds, illuminating the jagged horizon in brief, violent flashes. Below, the lands between sprawled endlessly, a nightmare of ruined valleys, rivers of molten obsidian, and forests of twisted ironwood that clawed at the fog like skeletal hands. And there, upon a throne wrought of blackened bone and molten steel, sat the undead king. He did not rise, did not acknowledge me with words or gestures, yet I could feel his awareness, sharp and patient, a predator measuring its prey with cold, unyielding scrutiny. Even the void of his gaze pressed into my mind like a physical force, testing boundaries I had never known could exist. I felt an alien weight upon my soul, something I had not encountered even in the warp, not during the battles with daemons of the eye or the ruinous powers of chaos. This was a consciousness older than humanity, perhaps older than the stars themselves, and it was patient. It had watched countless intruders climb its tower, and many had fallen not by the swing of its sword, but by the collapse of their own minds. I steadied myself, summoning the Emperor's will like a living shield. My inner monologue, the voice that had guided humanity through 10,000 years of war, whispered insistently, "Analyze, endure, adapt, strike when the mind and body are ready." The king's throne glowed faintly with a sickly green energy, the color of rot and poison. The runes etched across the throne pulsed like a heartbeat, feeding into the tower itself. I realized with grim clarity that this battle would not be fought on the physical plane alone. The tower, the throne, the king, they were all connected, a nexus of psychic pressure designed to unmake even the strongest minds. I felt my consciousness stretching, probing the edges of this alien logic. The shadows of past challenges flickered at the periphery of my perception, echoes of lives erased, yet preserved in the architecture of the lands between. I could see their final moments, frozen in eternal horror, and the knowledge gnawed at my resolve. I approached the throne cautiously. The king's crown, jagged and alive, seemed to writhe in the flickering light, as if it had a will of its own. I reached for my psychic projection, testing the waters, probing the fortress of the king's mind. Instantly, a wave of psychic pressure slammed back, an invisible hammer striking the edges of my consciousness. I staggered, though my body remained unmoving, and for the first time since stepping into this world, I felt doubt, not fear, but an awareness that this entity could see through every tactic, anticipate every maneuver. The psychological horror of the encounter was almost unbearable. I was accustomed to facing enemies whose minds were flawed, whose weaknesses could be exploited.
But here, I confronted something perfect in its alien perfection, a consciousness forged in cycles of death and observation, unbroken by time or morality. The king rose with a deliberate slowness that felt like hours rather than seconds. His skeletal form towered impossibly high, each movement accompanied by the groan of iron and bone, a sound that resonated with the very stone beneath me. When he finally spoke, his voice was a chorus of hollow echoes, layered and discordant, speaking not words, but concepts, twisting meaning into a form my mind could barely grasp. Golden One, your light is a spark in the abyss. Do you endure, or do you merely persist? I understood instinctively that the lands between did not accept conventional answers. Endurance here was not measured by survival alone. It was measured by the clarity of purpose, the absolute certainty of identity in a world that sought to erase it. I struck first, a surge of golden energy erupting from my form, lancing across the throne room. The king met it with a sweep of his jagged sword, the clash of energy and steel reverberating through the tower. Instantly, the room responded, walls pulsed, shadows surged, and fragments of light twisted into shapes that mimicked my form, attacking from angles that should have been impossible. The lands between was alive in every sense, and the battlefield itself was a weapon, a reflection of my own mind projected outward. I realized then the full horror. To fight here was to fight myself as much as the king. Every strike, every movement, every psychic pulse was mirrored, distorted, and returned in ways designed to test the boundaries of my will. I adjusted, focusing on my inner discipline, separating thought from impulse, purpose from instinct. The golden aura of my being flared, cutting through the mirrored illusions, yet the king did not falter. His strikes were deliberate, unhurried, each swing calibrated to test my reactions. I parried, countered, and struck again, golden energy searing through the illusion, yet every blow exacted a toll on my mind. Memories of terror, of the Great Crusade, of betrayal and war surged through me, and I realized with discomfort that the lands between had access to the very recesses of my soul. It probed not just my mind, but my identity, questioning the emperor himself. What does divinity mean in a world that obeys no law but its own? Hours, or perhaps mere minutes, passed. Time itself seemed suspended within the tower, stretched by the psychic presence of the king and the living architecture. I felt fatigue creeping in, not of flesh, but of the psyche. Every movement, every surge of energy, every thought had been monitored, mirrored, and challenged. And yet, I endured. I reminded myself, I am the emperor. I endure. I am the sum of humanity's hope and fury. This world may challenge me, but it will not unmake me. The psychological terror, the sense that my mind could be unwoven, that my identity could be consumed, was intense, but it was also clarifying. I became hyper-aware of every thought, every impulse, every edge of my consciousness. The lands between demanded precision, patience, and the relentless will to persevere. Finally, I saw an opening. The king overextended slightly, a minuscule flaw in an otherwise perfect rhythm. I channeled every ounce of psychic force into a strike, a concentrated beam of golden light that shattered the illusions and struck the king directly. For the first time, I sensed hesitation, a ripple of imbalance in his form. I pressed the advantage, striking again and again, not to destroy, but to test, to learn, to assert my will against the alien logic of this world. The room trembled in response, the tower groaning, as though acknowledging the audacity of a mortal god who dared challenge its order. The king roared, a sound that reverberated in my mind as much as in my ears. The green glow of his sword flared violently, and for a moment I felt the full psychic weight of his presence, a pressure that could unmake galaxies. Yet I stood firm, golden energy flaring outward, a radiant shield against the psychic onslaught. I realized then a truth, both terrifying and exhilarating. This battle would not be decided by skill alone, nor by strength, nor by strategy. It would be decided by the mind, by will, by the unyielding assertion of identity in a world that sought to erase it. The fight continued, a brutal, relentless dance of light and shadow, mind and matter. Every strike of the king tested my perception, my patience, my endurance. Every psychic wave threatened to unravel my mind. And yet I adapted, I learned, I endured. I pressed forward, step by step, blow by blow, until the first true sense of dominance, a recognition perhaps, even a begrudging respect from the king, flared faintly in the psychic ether. I understood then that this confrontation was not merely combat, it was a lesson in survival, a trial of godhood, and the beginning of understanding the alien, cruel logic of the lands between. And as I braced for the next exchange, golden light blazing, sword poised, and mind sharpened to razor precision, I understood a terrifying, exhilarating truth. In this world, I would not merely fight to survive, I would fight to understand, to endure, and to assert the Emperor of mankind as an unbreakable force against even the most alien and relentless logic of the lands between.
The air itself grew heavier as I descended from the tower, though the summit still loomed behind me like a sentinel of judgment. The lands between had acknowledged my presence, yet it was far from conceding anything. I moved across the jagged ridges, where stone had grown like teeth and rivers of molten black carved deep scars into the world. Each step echoed against invisible walls, the sound swallowed instantly by the red fog that clung to the valleys below like a living predator. My psychic senses remained on high alert, probing the distorted reality for threats, yet I realized that here, perception itself was a weapon, a cruel trick played by a world that had no allegiance to reason or law. I encountered my first new horror at the edge of an ironwood forest. The trees were not alive in any sense I could understand. Their bark pulsated, almost like muscle, and their branches twisted toward me with deliberate, predatory intent. Nestled among them were creatures that blurred the line between machine and flesh. Quadrupeds with metallic bones and sinew, heads like fused helmets, eyes glowing with the faint green of corrupted life. They did not flee, nor did they attack immediately. They observed, measuring the weight of my soul, testing the limits of my patience. I had fought orcs in the deserts of Cadia, tyrannids on countless worlds, and daemons in the Eye of Terror, yet I had never encountered predators that assessed me before deciding whether to strike. The psychological weight of being constantly measured, constantly judged, gnawed at the edges of my mind. I pressed forward, forcing myself to recall the discipline of the imperial psyche. I am the Emperor. No fear, no doubt, only clarity. Yet the lands between had a way of infiltrating even the strongest minds. Faint whispers, fragments of memory not my own, clung to me, echoes of the warriors who had traversed these lands before. Faces of the fallen, moments of agony and terror flickered at the periphery of vision. I fought to maintain control, to assert the will that had carried humanity through 10,000 years of unending war. Here, in this alien world, even divinity was insufficient if the mind faltered.
I reached a clearing where the ground itself seemed alive. The soil pulsed beneath my boots, and each footfall sent ripples across veins of blackened crystal embedded in the earth. From the mist, creatures emerged, slender, skeletal forms draped in tattered banners, their elongated limbs moving with fluidity that should have been impossible. Their eyes were hollow voids, yet when they turned toward me, I felt a pressure, a psychic probing that made my skull throb. I lifted my hand, psychic flame dancing along my fingers, and they recoiled, only to reform in new configurations, their forms unbroken by conventional destruction. I realized then the full extent of this world's cruelty. Even death was transient here, a tool for testing endurance rather than a resolution. As I advanced, the landscape shifted subtly, unnervingly. Valleys stretched unnaturally, cliffs extended at impossible angles, and the horizon folded back upon itself. Time seemed elastic, each movement a negotiation with perception itself. I recalled the rare psychic phenomena of the warp, yet even that realm felt familiar, ordered by chaos in predictable ways. This was different. Here, reality itself was alien, and my mind strained to map it. A fragment of doubt crept in, subtle but insidious. Even a god could lose orientation, become lost in this world, and vanish. I squashed it, focusing on the clarity of purpose that had sustained me through innumerable campaigns. I endure, I adapt, I conquer. Night fell, or at least the semblance of night, for the sky shifted to a bruised purple and green, molten clouds drifting like liquid nightmares. I entered a ruined city, streets lined with broken statues whose eyes seemed to follow my movements. Shadows moved independently of any source, coalescing into forms that mimicked those I had slain in the tower. Some were familiar, knights, warriors, but distorted, stretched, twisted until they were grotesque parodies of combatants I had faced across the Imperium. I recognized the psychological tactic. This was not merely combat, it was torment, forcing me to confront my own past, the burden of leadership, the weight of uncountable lives sacrificed to victory. From the center of the city rose a colossal spire, blackened and twisting, veins of green energy coursing along its surface. I sensed that this was another locus of power, another trial. As I approached, the ground convulsed beneath me, and the first of the spire's guardians emerged, a being taller than a titan, skeletal yet armored, its massive blade carving space itself with each swing. Its psychic presence was oppressive, pressing against my mind, testing my ability to think, plan, and act under incomprehensible pressure. Even the Emperor, who commanded billions of soldiers across countless war zones, had to acknowledge the horror of facing a foe whose very existence defied logic. I engaged the Guardian with a mixture of martial precision and psychic ferocity, golden energy lancing across its form, strikes met with counter-strikes that bent the rules of physics themselves. Each attack that connected was followed by the Guardian reforming, adapting, learning. I understood then that the lands between was not merely a world, it was a teacher, shaping my approach through trial, pain, and observation. Each encounter demanded perfection, yet perfection was insufficient. Adaptation and endurance were paramount. Hours, perhaps days, passed in this manner. My perception of time fractured, yet I remained resolute. Even the psychic pressure, even the alien logic that threatened to unravel the mind, could not break the Emperor's will. I walked through the horrors of the lands between, not as a conqueror of mere flesh, but as a student of a cruel alien world, absorbing its lessons, asserting my existence in defiance of entropy itself.
I realized with both awe and fear that survival here demanded more than strength, more than psychic power. It demanded an unflinching assertion of identity against forces that sought to dissolve it. Finally, I reached the base of the spire. The Guardian lay in twisted ruin, yet its defeat was not victory, but preparation. I sensed the presence of the spire's master, a being of incomprehensible scale, whose essence intertwined with the tower itself. The lands between pulsed in anticipation, its logic tightening like a vice around my mind. I knew that the trials ahead would test the very limits of my divinity, forcing me to confront horrors that existed not just in the world, but in the perception of reality itself. As I gazed upward, the spire seemed to stretch into infinity, its apex lost in the shifting clouds. I steeled myself, golden energy flaring outward in preparation. My inner monologue became a mantra, repeated with the precision of a psychic ritual. I am the Emperor. I endure. I adapt. I conquer. Nothing in this world, no logic, no creature, no force can unmake me. And with that, I ascended, step by deliberate step into the unknown, knowing that every moment of this world's surreal psychological horror was both a challenge and a revelation, a test of godhood in a realm that obeyed no law but its own.
The final stretch of the spire seemed infinite, each step a negotiation with gravity and perception itself. The stone beneath my feet shifted subtly, bending like liquid under the weight of my passage, and I could feel the psychic presence of the spire's master stretching outward, probing my mind with a patience that was almost unbearable. It was not merely waiting, it was observing, measuring, calculating, understanding every nuance of thought, every echo of memory. Even a being who had traversed the galaxy, who had commanded billions of lives, who had faced the horrors of chaos and the warp, could not dismiss the weight of this alien consciousness. My golden aura flared, a psychic beacon in a world that sought to consume clarity. Yet I felt the creeping tendrils of doubt pressing inward, subtle, insidious, testing the boundaries of identity itself. At last, I reached the apex. The spire opened into a vast chamber, impossibly high, with walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. A storm raged above, lightning crackling through gold and purple clouds, illuminating twisted forms that lurked in the corners of perception. And there, suspended on a dais of blackened crystal, was the Master itself, a being of impossible scale, its form shifting and fracturing as though reality struggled to contain it. Eyes like molten voids regarded me, and I felt the full psychic weight of its presence pressing against my mind, a force that could unravel lesser souls in an instant. Here was the true horror of the lands between, a consciousness so alien, so complete, that the battlefield was not flesh or steel, but thought itself. The creature moved, not as a human, not as a machine, not as anything I had known, but with the inevitability of time, each motion deliberate and incomprehensible. Psychic ripples flowed outward, distorting the very air, bending light and shadow into grotesque forms. My mind flinched, yet I held fast, focusing on the fire within, the spark of humanity that had guided me for 10,000 years, tempered by divinity and will. I am the Emperor. I endure. I adapt. I conquer. The mantra carried me, even as the Master reached toward me with tendrils of thought, probing the deepest corners of memory, seeking fracture points in my soul. The first exchange was not physical.
Tendrils of psychic energy lashed outward, striking my mind directly, unraveling perceptions, bending thoughts, forcing me to relive the weight of countless lives lost, the betrayals of sons and lieutenants, the deaths of entire civilizations. I fought to maintain clarity, projecting a shield of pure golden light that burned back the probing darkness. Even as it struck, I countered, flaring psychic energy outward in waves, each pulse an assertion of existence, a declaration that no alien logic could unmake me. Yet the Master was patient. It did not falter. It observed, adapted, and pressed again, each assault a test not of strength, but of endurance, identity, and willpower. Finally, I acted. I surged forward, moving faster than the eye could follow, psychic energy coalescing into a blade of golden flame. I struck at the Master, feeling the resistance of a consciousness that was everywhere and nowhere at once. The impact resonated through the chamber, fracturing light, shadow, and perception itself. For a moment, the Master recoiled, a ripple of imbalance passing through its form. I pressed the advantage, striking again and again, each blow a fusion of martial precision and psychic force. Yet the Master did not yield. It adapted, reformed, and countered, bending reality in ways that made even my divine senses strain to comprehend. Time fractured further. Minutes, hours, centuries, all collapsed into a single unbroken moment of tension. My mind flared with the weight of every thought I had ever held, every choice I had ever made, every betrayal, victory, and loss. I could feel the psychic echoes of the lands between, the whispers of fallen challengers, the weight of the spire itself. And yet, amidst the horror, there was clarity. This was not merely a test of power, it was a trial of purpose, identity, and resilience. Survival was insufficient, endurance alone was meaningless. To conquer this world, I had to assert the Emperor of mankind, unbroken, a beacon of clarity in a realm of madness, ready to face the next horrors that awaited, the next lords, the next impossible trials, and the ultimate test of endurance and identity that the lands between would demand.
The lands between had revealed its nature to me, layer by layer, horror by horror, and yet even now it did not relent. The world had tested my body, my mind, my soul, and my divinity, seeking cracks, hesitation, any glimmer of doubt that might unmake the Emperor of mankind. But I had endured, I had adapted, I had asserted my presence against impossible geometry, alien consciousness, and entities older than the stars themselves. And now, standing upon the jagged pinnacle of the shattered continent, I understood that the final trial was not a single foe, but the entirety of the lands between itself. Its twisted logic, its sentient landscape, its army of fractured souls, all waited for me to assert dominance, to bend the world to clarity, to survive not merely as a god, but as a force of purpose that could shape reality itself. The sky above roiled in violent color, gold, black, and violet clouds entwining as though the heavens themselves were alive, watching. Rivers of molten metal threaded through valleys like veins of the world's own body, and forests of ironwood stretched endlessly, their branches curling toward me in anticipation. Shadows moved independently of any source, merging and splitting with disorienting speed. My psychic senses flared, probing the boundaries of this world, and I realized that I no longer merely reacted to threats, I commanded perception, asserting my presence with golden light that pushed back the malleable logic of the lands between. My inner monologue, the guiding voice that had led humanity across galaxies, became sharper, more absolute. I am the Emperor. This world bends to neither chance nor cruelty without consequence. I endure, I shape, I conquer.
From the mists, the lords emerged, a procession of nightmare figures I had glimpsed in shadows and whispered legends, skeletal titans fused with architecture, knights whose swords spanned impossibly vast distances, ethereal beings of fractured light and memory. They did not speak, yet their presence communicated intent, to resist, to challenge, to measure the Emperor against the full breadth of their world. I advanced, psychic energy flaring outward, sword blazing with golden radiance. Each strike I delivered was precise, calculated, a fusion of martial skill and divine power. The lords responded not merely with physical force, but with reality itself, twisting gravity, warping space, fracturing perception. Yet I endured. I adapted. Each attack that should have unmade me instead became a lesson, a map of the world's logic, a path through which I could assert my dominance. I moved like a force of nature, golden light erupting from every motion, psychic energy lancing across the battlefield, searing shadows and flesh alike. The lands between responded, a wave of sentient hostility that pressed against my mind with the weight of countless eons. Yet in the midst of chaos, I found clarity. The world's horrors, its alien logic, its relentless cruelty, all were subject to the will that I wielded. I was the Emperor, God of humanity, and even a world that obeyed no law could not resist the assertion of absolute purpose. I realized with exhilaration that the lands between had provided the ultimate crucible. To survive here was not merely to endure, but to dominate, to bend a reality crafted for insanity and despair to the unflinching clarity of divinity. The central spire, still looming in the distance, radiated psychic energy that pulsed with awareness. I understood that the master I had faced at its apex had been only a part of the whole. Now the spire itself, the nexus of all that the world had constructed, rose to challenge me. From its walls poured a torrent of forms, shards of fallen lords, twisted reflections of my own soldiers, echoes of memories both mine and alien. I advanced, golden light illuminating every corner, psychic force burning through illusions and reality alike. Each strike, each motion, each psychic pulse was an assertion of identity, a declaration that the Emperor would not be unmade, that the very logic of the lands between would bend to his will. At the base of the spire, I encountered the final guardian, a being whose form was impossible to describe, a fractal convergence of metal, bone, and shadow. Its presence pressed against my mind, a psychic hammer threatening to shatter consciousness itself. Yet I moved without hesitation, every motion precise, every strike a blend of martial and divine power. The guardian lashed outward with tendrils that warped reality, yet my golden aura flared, severing each connection, asserting the inviolable truth of my existence. I realized then that the ultimate trial was not the guardian, not even the spire. It was the assertion of self, the ability to impose divinity against a world designed to erase it. I ascended the spire, step by deliberate step, psychic energy flaring, golden light blazing across the warped architecture. Each level I reached, the world bent, twisted and fractured to resist me, yet I pressed onward. At the apex, the full consciousness of the lands between awaited, not a singular entity, but a sentient nexus, a culmination of all its trials, its horrors, its alien logic. It reached out with the weight of infinity, probing every thought, every memory, every trace of doubt. I felt the crushing immensity of it, and for a fleeting moment, a spark of awareness flickered. This was a force beyond even the galaxy itself. I let the spark ignite. I became the assertion of divinity incarnate. Golden light flared outward, psychic energy lancing across dimensions, bending the very logic of the lands between. I struck not with sword or fist, but with purpose, with will, with the concentrated essence of millennia of human endeavor and divine authority. The nexus recoiled, fractals of its form unraveling, reality itself shivering under the magnitude of assertion. Shadows screamed, landscapes convulsed, yet I endured, pressing forward with relentless clarity. Every strike was both a destruction and a teaching, a lesson that even a world born of horror and alien perfection could yield to absolute will. And then silence. The storm above fractured, clouds settling into a surreal calm. The spire, the guardians, the nexus itself, all lay subdued, reality bent to accommodate the presence of a being unflinching, unbroken, and absolute. I stood atop the apex, golden light blazing, psychic presence asserting dominion over the alien, incomprehensible world. The lands between had been a crucible, a world designed to unmake gods, yet it had revealed its ultimate lesson. Survival was not enough. Domination required clarity, endurance, and the unyielding assertion of identity. I had endured. I adapted. I had conquered. Even in the calm that followed, I understood the truth. The lands between was infinite, patient, and persistent. Its horrors would always exist, its logic always stretched to infinity. Yet I had proven that even a world designed to unmake gods could be met with the unbroken will of the Emperor of mankind. I was not merely a visitor, I was an apex force, a being whose clarity, purpose, and divinity transcended even the alien logic of this nightmare realm. And as I gazed across the twisted horizon, I understood that I had not merely survived, I had transformed the lands between, bending it to the assertion of absolute divinity, leaving a mark that would endure beyond time and memory.
Elden.